Hello, my name is Jim Hare. We're here at the Old Rhinebeck Aerodrome, Rhinebeck, New York. I've been involved here at the aerodrome since 1982, and I've been interested in vintage aviation and airplanes in general since I was a little kid, like most people here. The aerodrome was started back in 1959 by a gentleman by the name of Cole Palen, who was able to purchase 6 World War I airplanes from Roosevelt Field down on Long Island. And with that initial collection of 6 airplanes, he set a course on his life to preserve not only those 6, but this entire collection that now numbers around 60 aircraft, related vehicles, motorcycles, engines, memorabilia, a little bit of everything. In order to make the aerodrome a little bit different from any other aviation museum, Cole Palen wanted to fly as many of the airplanes as possible. And he started back in the early 60s taking some of these World War I airplanes out on the road, towing them to various military air shows around the Northeast, and that's how he got his initial exposure. The aerodrome is one of the few places in the world where you get to see these vintage aircraft fly, and you're right alongside of a grass runway in a very, very natural setting. It's not like a big commercial type airport. Very, very different. When you walk through the covered bridge that goes over to the airfield, you really do take a step back in time, and you see the vintage airplanes take to the skies just the way they did back in the days of World War I and earlier. We have a few airplanes from the 1909, 1910 era that we still hop the length of the runway. Not very high or very far or very fast, but they do still fly. A number of World War I aviation aircraft, some powered with their original engines from that time period, and quite a few airplanes from the 1920s and 1930s. And the air show, it's a lot of fun. It's whether you have an interest in aviation or not, it's a very interesting show. It's a little slice of history, a little slice of a very bygone era you just don't get to see anymore. And it's awfully nice to be a part of the preservation of that aviation history. The aircraft collection here at Old Rhinebeck Aerodrome, on any given air show season, we try to keep about 10 to 12 airplanes airworthy for people to come and see fly. That comes with an awful lot of work. First step is the restoration of the airplane, or in some cases the airplanes are built from scratch. We have a number of World War I airplanes that are built from original plans. We try to power them with original engines wherever possible, and then to make them fly. It's always something always needs to be done, and we do have some incidents where repairs need to be needed. At one point it was estimated that for every hour of flying time it was 10 to 12 hours of maintenance if you were to really average it all out. Our latest project, just completed and test flown December 5th, 2015, is an exact reproduction of Charles Lindbergh's Ryan NYP, the New York to Paris, the Spirit of St. Louis. That airplane was a 20-year project, believe it or not. Actually, really a 10-year project. It was back burner for a number of years. But there's probably, I won't estimate exactly how much, but thousands of man-hours go in to recreating one of these vintage airplanes. And they're relatively simple aircraft to build. They're pretty straightforward. It's a labor of love for many of our staff here, and we've got a great core group of volunteers that are skilled as well, not only in the aircraft maintenance, but all the antique vehicles that we operate as well. The collection of airplanes at the aerodrome essentially was gathered over the years by Cole Palen from the years of about 1956 or so when he started, right up until his passing in 1993. He would not hesitate to trade an airplane. If he saw one that he wanted more, he would make a trade. And then as he began to have a little success with the air shows and began to make a little bit of money here and there, everything was invested back into the collection. So if he had a good air show season, say back in the mid-60s or early 70s when things were rolling pretty well here, he was able to afford to buy another airplane. He would go out around the countryside. The word was out that he was a collector of vintage airplanes, and if he could afford to buy one, he would. Whether it was a flying airplane or one that needed to be restored, or even a basket case. So every dollar that came into the aerodrome, it pretty much went back out to build up the collection. As I say, it went from 6 airplanes to start out with to 50 or so that are in the collection now. The airplane that we're sitting in front of is one of the favorite aircraft of Cole Palen's. He loved to fly this. This is called a Great Lakes Sport Trainer, built out in Cleveland, Ohio. Introduced in 1928 and then built through 1929 up to about 1931. Like many of the aviation companies back in that time, they were a victim of the Great Depression. But after Lindbergh crossed the ocean, 1927, there was a great aviation boom here in the United States, and the Great Lakes is a typical biplane of that time period. Pretty compact little airplane. It has a 4-cylinder inline, 125 horsepower Monasco Super Pirate engine. Two-place airplane, sits two tandem, fully aerobatic, and Cole would always take this airplane up in our Saturday show, participate in our balloon burst, and he would climb up to about 2,500 feet and give an old style 1930s aerobatic routine, doing loop-the-loops and slow rolls, inverted flight. And on these early engines, there's no fuel pump on it, so when the airplane would roll upside down, it would be starved for fuel. You'd hear the engine cut off, and you roll it back upright, and the fuel would flow back and then fire back up. That always got people's attention in the show. But it's a delightful airplane to fly, and I think he enjoyed flying the Great Lakes probably, certainly as much, if not more, than many of the other airplanes.